Good evening. Welcome to our Council and Committee of the Whole meeting for March 19th, 2024. Bonne soirée et bienvenue à notre réunion de 19 mars. We'll begin this evening with our land acknowledgement presented by Councillor Tessier.
Je souhaite prendre un moment pour souligner l'importance du territoire sur lequel nous sommes rassemblés. La municipalité de Nipissing-Ouest reconnaît avec respect que nous sommes réunis sur les terres ancestrales des peuples Anishinaabe, sur le territoire traditionnel des Premières Nations Nipissing, Temagami et Dokis, désignés par le traité Robinson-Huron. Nous honorons leur lien historique avec le territoire et nous valorisons leur contribution considérable au façonnement et au renforcement de nos communautés. Ce faisant, nous réaffirmons notre engagement et notre responsabilité envers la réconciliation et l'amélioration de notre compréhension des peuples autochtones, locaux et de leur culture.
Merci. We have no addendum for this evening, but we will move on to adopt the agenda. Please note that you have an amended agenda that was at your seats for this evening. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I missed number 2. Declarations of pecuniary interest, please. Councillor Rivard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to declare their pecuniary interest for item 5.1.1, short-term rental accommodations bylaw.
Thank you. And we'll just note that the paperwork has been filled out and filed with the clerk's office. Sorry, with that, we will move to adopt the agenda, the amended agenda that was placed at your desk this evening.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Tessier. It resolved that the agenda for Council and Committee of the Whole held on March the 19th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and with that, we do have a delegation this evening. I'm happy to welcome Caroline Marks, Joanne Laberge, and Roseanne Beausoleil from Werner Ram Rodeo to present to Council about an exciting event coming to West Nipissing in September. Welcome to you all, and Ms. Marks will get the presentation. Just a moment. You're going to put her presentation on
Do you want us to start the presentation now?
Oui, c'est correct.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup, membres du Conseil, pour nous allouer cet temps au Council ce soir. Joanne et Rosanne sont avec moi aujourd'hui. Ça va présenter le Werner Ram Rodeo. On espère qu'on peut vous inciter à joindre à nous. Donc, le Werner Ram Rodeo, présenté par le Ram Rodeo Tour, on va hoster le rodeo à Werner sur le chemin Millerand le septembre 7 et 8.
If they change.
Oui. Sur le Ram Rodeo Tour, entre dans sa 26e année au sein de l'Ontario. So, ça fait 26 ans qu'ils se promènent à travers l'Ontario and they present the rodeo to the people. They have multiple stops throughout Ontario. And now this is going to include West Nipissing. And if we're lucky enough, we can host it every year. So we can have this become a reoccurring event. Ils ont des compétiteurs, des concurrents de tout à travers l'Ontario et le Canada. Et même, on a des compétiteurs qui viennent proche de la région. On a un jeune homme qui a gagné le bull riding pour l'année qui vient dans le coin de Markstay, Hager. So, on a quand même des concurrents qui sont assez locaux à nous autres. Puis, les personnes de la municipalité qui font ce genre d'événements-là sont bienvenues à participer aussi. Donc, ça va apporter des visiteurs de tous les coins de l'Ontario et du Canada, les familles, les amis de ces concurrents-là. Le rodeo inclut 6 événements. So, we got the barrel racing, pole bending, rescue race, bull riding, bronc riding, saddle bronc riding. So all those events are included within the rodeo. And they also have entertainment from the Canadian Cowgirls. I don't know who, if you were at the IPM, you saw their show. every day, and they always put a smile on our faces. They also have trick riders, trick ropers, and so much more. They also have like kids rodeo, where the Canadian Cowgirls will let the little kids come and play and learn about rodeoing. So if you want to try the yellow one, if the video will work, it's the yellow link in the previous slide.
It won't.
It won't. Okay.
It won't link, I'm
So
sorry.
this was just a little video depicting the Ram Rodeo Tour. It was explaining a little bit of what they bring to Ontario as a whole throughout the season. So there was numbers like they bring in over 14 million in revenues from visitors and tourism to their different cities. They're bringing in millions of people through their websites. So it was just showing a little bit what they bring into Ontario. So for those who want to see the video afterwards, I have it on my computer, I can show you. Je vais maintenant laisser la parole à Joanne qui va présenter qu'est-ce que le Verneram Rodeo va nous apporter.
Merci. Bonjour tout le monde. So on a 2 journées de rodeo, le samedi puis le dimanche, le 7 et 8 septembre de 2024. Live entertainment Saturday night by a local band on the farm, on the rodeo grounds. We're expecting between 3,000 to 5,000 people in attendance throughout the weekend. Ça fait que c'est des numéros qui sont basés du rodeo qui font à Newlisgurd, parce que c'est la première année que nous autres on le fait ici à Verner. Comme Caroline a dit, ça a déjà été fait à travers du IPM. Je pense en 2000, il y a eu un rodeo ici. On n'a pas accès aux données de l'an 2000. On va avoir des vendeurs de produits alimentaires et artisans locaux, so local food vendors and local craft vendors. C'est notre première année. It's our first year, so we plan on doing this again next year, hopefully if everything goes well. It's a very family-friendly event. Ça fait que toute la famille peut venir. C'est un show que tout le monde peut watcher. Ça va être good time for all. In Verner, West Nipissing.
So, ça va monter la hausse de tourisme avant puis après les événements. It's going to involve different organizations across West Nipissing to engage community spirits. Most supplies are coming from our local businesses, so we're trying to help locals as much as we can. Positive advertisement for local businesses through sponsorships. That way it's helpful each one of us. Advertisements outside of West Nipissing to attract neighboring communities as well. Ram Rodeo Tour is one of the largest marketing rodeo in Eastern Canada. The youth sportsmanship opportunities is always great. Giving to a branch of the agricultural community and exciting volunteers for opportunities for our youth because they're next.
Pour conclure, encore une fois, merci beaucoup pour l'opportunité que vous nous offrez ce soir à présenter notre événement. In recent years, West Nipissing has seen a decline in community events that attracts large crowds. The lack of excitement and tourism in the municipality has been a growing concern for residents and businesses alike. However, the upcoming Ram Rodeo has the potential to change this trend and bring a renewed sense of energy and activity to the area. The Ram Rodeo is highly anticipated events that draw in spectators from all over the region. And we've been seeing it already. People are already talking about it. Les gens, quand on les rencontre sur le chemin, oh my God, we're so excited to have this event come in. So with thrilling rodeo performances, live music, local food vendors and craft vendors, family-friendly activities, this is what we're really going for. We really want to bring in the family activity. The event promises to be a fun-filled weekend for people of all ages. By hosting the Ram Rodeo in West Nipissing, the municipality has the opportunity to revitalize its community event scene and attract a new wave of visitors with the potential for increased tourism and economic activities, local businesses stand to benefit from the influx of visitors attending the event. In conclusion, the Ram Rodeo has the potential to bring back the excitement and enthusiasm that has been lacking in West Nipissing's community events. By showcasing this thrilling event, the municipality can not only boost tourism and economic activities, but also create lasting memories for residents and visitors alike. Est-ce qu'il y aura des questions?
Merci pour la présentation. C'est bon. I know that both Jerome and I have had the opportunity to meet with you, and I know that for your excitement. And I do want to commend you for taking on the work. As somebody, as we spoke about, with an event management background, I know the depth of work that goes into bringing something like this to community. And I'd like to just first take the opportunity to thank you and your colleagues for the work that you're doing to bring this here. I think it's really exciting. And with that, I'd like to open up the floor for questions from our members. Thank you.
You said questions, right? So no.
Or comments, I'm sorry,
Yes, there you
questions
go.
or
I
comments.
have no questions.
I thank
just
you,
a
Mr.
comment.
Salu.
I'd like to commend you guys also, and you're right. West Nipissing used to have the Fiddle Festival, and we used to have the Trucker Show and Shine, and everything seems to happen in spurts, and it'll last for 10 years, and then it disappears, and so on and so forth. It's just how it is, and the volunteer groups back then also, the age gets there, and it's good to see people getting involved again in our community, which is younger than some of the older individuals that used to do all these events way back when, right? I think it's fantastic for our municipality. It's fantastic for all the businesses in town that will 100% benefit from this event. So good job.
Merci.
Councillor Crochet?
Thank you, Madame Mayor. Je voulais juste passer un commentaire. Je suis bien excité pour le Ram Rodeo. J'étais un des premiers, là, je pense, qui a répondu à l'appel. C'est excitant d'avoir des événements comme ça dans notre communauté parce que, comme vous l'avez mentionné, il n'y a pas autant d'événements comme qu'il y avait déjà. C'est bien aussi, c'est comme, surtout cette année, c'est le 130e de Vernon aussi. Ça fait qu'avec un événement comme ça, ça met beaucoup de belles publicités, de bonnes choses sur la carte. Si jamais il y a quelque chose qu'on peut faire, en tout cas, vous avez mon support là-dessus. Et puis, s'il y a jamais quelque chose, je pense qu'on pourrait faire, moi, je serais prêt à vous aider avec ça. Fait que félicitations.
Merci beaucoup.
Councillor Rivard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question for myself and maybe everyone who's watching, but when do tickets go on sale?
So the tickets are on sale online right now through the Ram Rodeo Tours website. And then we will have, so we're starting to advertise for the online ticket sale. They are at a reduced price right now. We will also have the tickets for sale at the event, but they'll be full price by that point.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just to follow up with, will there be local outlets where tickets will be for sale, businesses or whatever itself? Or
Yes,
just
so-
either online or at the door?
I would like to, that would be something that I would want to bring in through my sponsors. Maybe give them a certain amount of tickets and say, hey, if you want to advertise that you've got them, let's bring the people through your door even before the event starts. Yes, this is the logistics of the Ram Rodeo Tour itself, so I have to make sure with them that it's a possibility.
Phil? Okay. I do have a few questions, if you don't mind. So in your planning, I know that in our discussion, there are some ways that the municipality would be able to assist you. Have you put together any kind of
A wish list?
yeah.
I have. I've been in contact with Jay as well to see what we could come up with. So I was told that maybe this meeting is not the place where we can put those questions forward. So I will be happy to have another meeting maybe and discuss that further.
Right, so Caroline and I met, we talked a little bit about some of her needs. I also, and I coincidentally bumped into her a second time the same week, and she was speaking with Neil Fox, who I put her in touch with, because some of the suppliers that she was inquiring, whether they were local or whether they were supplied by the Plowmen's Association, because that partnership was a local slash provincial partnership, and they came in with a few things. So we're making those lists available, and then the other issues that she's bringing forward, we would get the list and then staff would track down. But typically what happens here governance-wise, as I mentioned, is that you make your presentation, there'd be some questions, and then this matter will be brought up in the community services portion with a staff report. So we will be in touch with you, talking a little bit more fulsomely about what you will need, and then we will then have a report to council on our ability or non-ability or whatever to make it happen.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions before we close the discussion? Okay, thank you again for coming to present this evening. I know that, I hope I speak on behalf of all of council. It's a really exciting opportunity for West Nipissing. And again, thank you for the work that you're putting into it, because without people like you in the community, that's how these things happen. So I'd just like to commend you and thank you very much. I will also just ask if the clerk could send the presentation to all council, because it's not in our package, and that way we can link that video like the original PowerPoint.
And the one that's on the website may link,
Okay,
but I will send it the actual PowerPoint.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you all.
Have a great evening.
Next, we'll move into number 5, our committee of the whole. And the first item of the discussion, 5.1, is a planning committee, and for that, I'll pass it to the chair, Councillor Fitzhugh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the short-term rental accommodation bylaw. So I'd like to thank in advance everyone for your patience with my chairing this topic. To bring a structure to the discussion of the short-term rental accommodation draft bylaw, I wish to explain the process I wish to follow. So in the bylaw, there's 7 parts and 4 schedules to this bylaw. So I will open the discussion with part 1. I will add from the staff report the discussion that was previously brought up at the last meeting to the part that it applies to. Once everyone has provided their comments or questions, I will then ask for consensus as to either keep that part as is or make the required modification. Once a vote has taken place on that part, I will move on to the next part until the entire bylaw has been reviewed. So are there any questions or comments before I proceed? And is everybody in agreement with that process? If you could raise your hands, consensus, thank you. So to start on page 13, part 1, that's interpretation and application. So basically the definitions. Are there any comments or questions regarding that part? If not, is everybody in agreement? If you could raise your hand with the information. Everybody's in agreement? Thank you. So part 2, which is on page 16. So there was a discussion regarding 2.1.11, the camping trailer not to be used for straw unless in a property zone trailer park. And the rationale was the use of a camping trailer as a dwelling is not permitted in the zoning, based on the zoning bylaw 2014-45. So that was one of the issues. Any questions or comments regarding that point? No? 2.1, dwelling maximum occupancy, 2 per bedroom and max of 2 in living area on pull-out or daybed, etc. Rationale, septic system approvals are given on a per bedroom per fixture basis. Bedroom occupancy is calculated at 2 for licensing purposes. Increasing occupancy per bedroom could potentially create a strain on the approved septic system. Any questions or comments on that section? Yes, Madam Mayor?
Just on that, and I'm trying to read it here. I just want to make sure, and I think it might be somewhere further down, that it's still based on septic. So there are going to be occasions where properties may have been modified without permits being issued back years ago. And so the current setup of that building may not be compliant with the septic requirements. Like, let's say somebody added 2 bedrooms in living before the time of building permits kind of thing. So it shouldn't just be bedrooms. It's a combination of the bedroom and what the septic capacity is, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, every license requires a septic review prior to
Okay.
being issued to ensure it's what's being proposed is in compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Now they're just off the order. I'm going to go to page 11, where it says 2.2.4 and 2.2.5, parking provisions. Oh, and I forgot to read the rest of the other explanation at the back. That's okay. Consistent with zoning bylaw 2014-45 to ensure nature and character of residential area are maintained. Any questions or comments regarding that? Seeing none, I'll continue. 2.2.5, the same. And 2.2.6 on page 10. No straw on private road. Unless written authorization of other users is given. The rationale is the rights of way are granted for the use by property owner for access. Right of ways are over private lands owned by an individual. Owners generally cost share. Maintenance, use the road for quasi-commercial purposes without consent could result in conflict with users, residents, or the owner of the property on which the road is located. Any questions or comments? Councillor, yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I would, I guess, have a question. So right now, the right-of-ways or the private roads, how are conflicts handled right now? I'm assuming it's, I guess a civil matter then because it's between 2 individuals?
Well, through you, Madam Chair, very poorly.
Okay.
They are private and civil. They are civil matters, as you know, with some of the, some of the roads in your area and some of the things we faced. It becomes a civil matter. The municipalities have no say in the matter of a private road. The reason we would have a say in this case is because the underlying assumption here is that we are licensing and therefore permitting something. So if we're permitting something to somebody at the expense of people who may have a problem with that, then we've kind of entered into the debate, and that's why we're wanting to ensure that before we issue a license, that everybody, is okay with it. As the chair indicated, this can go either way, but it is our hope at the end of this that if you're not in favor of a certain area by a straw or a certain section like this one by a straw poll vote, then we just remove it. Okay.
Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moi, j'ai pas de problème. Short-term rental sur un chemin privé. Au commencement, quand il y a Airbnb, j'ai entendu parler de ça, c'était une dame qui était sur un petit lac dans le Kipling. C'est la première fois que j'entendais parler de ça, Airbnb, puis elle avait eu une bien mauvaise expérience. Là, je me disais, bon, OK, on n'a pas besoin de ça ici. Mais là, depuis ce temps-là, j'ai parlé à bien du monde qui font du short-term rental, pas autant comme une business, mais partiellement avec le chalet et tout ça. So, j'ai comme changé mon idée de bord. Après, j'ai tout entendu ça, là, qu'il y a tellement de choses en place pour faire des restrictions, pour que les gens aient moins de misère là, avec le point de système et toute la patente. So, moi, juste pour dire que moi, j'appartiens à un chemin privé. Il y a environ 15 résidents sur ce chemin-là. Le chemin est privé depuis 54 ans. On a toujours eu quelqu'un de temps en temps qui louait son chalet ou prêtait son chalet à des amis ou à de la famille. On a eu des résidents, on a des résidents sur le chemin qui presque pas le chemin, ils sont jamais là. On a d'autres qui utilisent le chemin 10 fois plus que les autres. Ils ont de la visite, ça ne dérougit pas. Mais on n'a jamais eu de problème avec tout ça dans 54 ans. So, j'ai récemment su qu'on a 2 résidents sur le chemin qui font du short-term rental, que je n'étais pas au courant d'eux. Alors, j'en ai parlé à un d'eux autres, puis il m'a expliqué comment que ça marchait. Il y a un processus en place qui peut checker la personne si c'est un 4-star ou un 5-star, whatever. Il ne prend pas personne qui n'a pas un record. Pour dire qu'il va utiliser le chemin plus que nous autres, plus que d'autres mondes, je ne suis pas d'accord avec ça. Là. Il screen le gens comme du monde, tout ça. Donc, moi, je n'ai pas de problème avec tout ça. C'est ça. Je trouverais ça de valeur, parce que dans ce temps-là, je ne savais pas, mais là, que je sais toute l'histoire. Je trouverais ça de valeur de les empêcher de louer le chalet quelques semaines de temps dans l'été ou dans l'hiver, autant qu'ils veulent. Puis, j'ai jamais entendu un problème de d'autres résidents qui disent, ah, ben, tu sais, les autres, ils passent trop souvent, whatever, parce que ça, c'est pas un argument, parce que ça marche. C'est pas vrai. Encore, c'est pour ça que je compte ça, qu'on ait ça là-dedans pour les chemins privés.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing no other comments, so from what I'm hearing is the recommendation from both people that spoke is to remove 2.2.6 from the bylaw?
I have a question.
Councillor, yes, go ahead.
What's the rationale in regards to putting that item in there? Obviously, we didn't put it in there for just because we thought it was funny, but are we liable or might there be any repercussion to the municipality if we don't put it in there?
Melanie, not per se. The fact that we're licensing, as I indicated, the fact that we're getting involved by issuing licenses, we're just wanting to ensure that there's harmony and not getting involved in any neighbor dispute unnecessarily by licensing something that wasn't the wish of somebody else. Councillor Pellerin raises a specific issue with a lot of history on his road, and so the reality is that doesn't seem to be an issue. Hypothetically, it can be, but I don't necessarily see the exclusion of that being a problem one way or the other. we're just wanting to be, when we prepare bylaws, we are as fulsome as possible, or as complete as possible, and then council can decide to keep it in or take it out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, yes, Madam Mayor?
I believe when Madam Planner, in this case, in your double role, addressed this at first, there was also, it was indicated that this stipulation was seen in other short-term bylaws that had, short-term rental bylaws that have been enacted across the province. So is this a fairly common?
Through you, Madam Chair, in rural areas, yes, where there's a proliferation of private roads. The rationale is, as indicated, the purpose of the bylaw is to ensure the continued safety and security of our residents. And by putting this in, other municipalities felt it provided an additional layer.
And I guess you're not aware whether there have been any appeals on that specific subject?
I couldn't say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Bristol.
Yes, Councillor Bristol?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I think that with some of the comments around the table, if there's some concern or there's some people who are okay with this within the community who work around or live on these private roads, I think it's the way it's worded here probably sits okay, because it says that if written authorization is given from those people who are responsible for that private road, then it's okay. It doesn't say that you can't have these on a private road. It says that if you do, that you need authorization from those individuals. And I think that's what's built into the wording that we have in front of us. And I know we're not formally voting, but I was just a little concerned there because I thought we were going to go around and make sure that we're all okay with this. And there was two people who spoke against it. And the comment that was made was two people wanted out. So I guess we're going to take it out. And I know we don't have a lot more to go through, but if we do go through them, I'd like to at least give everybody a chance to indicate whether they're for or against keeping the wording in as it is. It just seemed like it was going a little quick there. But that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other that wants to provide a comment or question? I will provide a comment. From what I heard during the council meeting with one of the, during the planning board meeting with one of the public member, and during the open session, it seemed that the disturbance with the individuals that are around was lacking. They contacted who they need to contact to address the issue, but it seemed that they were always going in circles as to how those departments were going to handle the situation. And I think with the, like indicated earlier, with the point system now and the bylaw being in place with the bylaw officer or even the OPP after hours, they have something to go by as to be able to have guidance on how to address a situation when there's disturbance in those areas. So for me, because the private roads, does it mean that everybody on the private road has to say yes to allow the short-term rental? As soon as one is saying, no, we don't want it, does that null and void that person from having a short-term rental?
The way it is worded now, yes.
Yes. Thank you. So the question is, my next question, to see if we want to remove it or yes.
Just to help you, if you don't mind, I would on every one of them to make sure you get closure on every point. I would ask, is council in favor of this document as it is written now? And obviously, you're gonna get some no's, and if you get more no's than yeses, then we're gonna say, then this part leaves. So I would just ask every question of what is there in the affirmative, who's in favor of it, as it is now, that people have spoken, and then just raise your hand saying, yes, I want to keep it in. And obviously, not to speak for Councillor Cochine or Councillor Perrin or yourself or others, but no, I would like it removed. And then you'd have at least a democracy and a consensus on how to move forward.
So when you say all the points in 2.0, all of them, or just the one we reviewed?
Just 2.2 points. Right now, you're talking about 2.2. So I would ask the question respectfully, Madam Chair, who is in favor of keeping it and who's, and if you've got the majority, then it stays in.
Okay. So, yes.
Sorry, just through you, Madam Chair, just a quick question. I'm pretty sure that we probably don't have the answer though. Do we have an idea of how many short-term rentals would be affected that are on private roads? No, okay. I'm just wondering if this is affecting 2 or 3 people or if this is affecting 30 or 40. There's a big difference here where you're talking about 30 or 40 individuals that might not be able to, bring tourism to West Nipissing, or if it's just 2 or 3. But I kind of figured we wouldn't have that until everybody applies for the short-term rentals. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Perrin?
I can answer, thank you, Madam Chair. I can answer part of it, Councillor St-Louis. I know of 4 that I didn't know about before, but I know 4 within half a kilometer, which is on 2 private roads.
Yes, Councillor Cochine?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to kind of support Councillor Perrin. Like I know in my area, there's a whole lot of private roads and can count more than 5 easily. And there's more that we don't know because it's with any licensing, there's no licenses right now, so we don't know exactly how much there is. So they, there could be 100, there could be 50, there could be 200, but I know from personal knowledge and experience that there are quite a few.
Thank you. Others, questions or comments before we go to the vote? So who's in favor of keeping 2.2.6 in the bylaw? 1, 2. Defeated? Oh. So we'll be removing the 2.2.6 from the bylaw. Thank you. Now to part 3.
Did you gain consensus on the parking provisions, Madam Chair?
I'm sorry?
Was everybody in agreement with the parking provisions? Because I see you jumped to 3. Had you done that already? Or?
Yeah, I did that before because it was out of order. Yeah, the rest are to remain in the bylaw.
I'm just being your nosy assistant.
No, thank you. No, thank you. No, make sure. Yes, thank you. Okay, so 3. So license class. 3.1.1a and 3.1.2a talks about Class A and Class B licenses permitted in any zone in which a dwelling is permitted. Remove from reference to A1. Any zoning which permits a residential dwelling is eligible to obtain a straw license subject to the remaining provisions of the straw by law or any other provisions in the zoning bylaw. Can I remove from a reference to A1, sorry, Madam?
Madam Chair, that was just an information piece. In a previous draft, there had been prohibition against a short-term rental in agriculture
Oh,
zone.
that's agriculture.
Yeah, I put it back
Sorry.
in. So
Thank
anywhere
you.
you can have a house, you can.
Okay. So any comments or questions regarding that section? For the Class A? Would you like me to read the class? Yes, Madam Mayor.
I just believe at the last meeting, we had a discussion about the differentiation between a dwelling and a residence, because we talked about people who have more than one dwelling unit. And so whether that language just needed to be changed so it doesn't appear that it's only the principal dwelling unit, it really should be like the property of the principal residence, right?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, I did make a note of that and I made that change in my notes in the definition.
Okay, and will that change here as well? Like, will it change in this section as well?
Well, the definition of dwelling will change so that it changes throughout.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor President?
Just to follow up on this, have we passed the definitions or are we coming up to them? We passed the definitions already?
Yeah.
Okay. I got a question on that. For a Class A license, it's supposed to be your principal residence. How do you check on that it's your principal residence?
You can answer.
Yeah.
Typically, it would be the address at which you reside and where you receive your tax bill.
Okay.
Like the address on your driver's license, the address where you get your mail, your normal residential address.
Okay. What about a non-resident?
Well, this wouldn't be their principal dwelling. That would be a non-principal dwelling. So if somebody lives in Markham and they have a cottage in West Nipissing, their principal residence is in Markham. And this would be, they would fall under the Class B non-principal.
But how, let's say, how would you check? They could live there, but put their house in West Nipissing as their principal residence and be allowed to have a Class B2. Like some people, they got a house. They got a house in New York, England. Where do you put your resident? I just want to make sure that nobody does it in a way like from outside. That's a non-resident. I don't know if I'm explaining
Yeah, no, you
myself.
are. Typically, and I think the mayor is pretty accurate because I go through that too with being of no fixed address. So, my driver's license typically is my principal address. So if you start playing around with that, that's actually against the law. So you need to have on your driver's license where you actually reside. And that's your principal residence, so they'd be checking driver's licenses.
Okay.
I mean, no system is going to be foolproof. If somebody wants to play the system, yeah, there might be an opportunity for people to get caught, but for the most part, that would be a very great exception, not the rule.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
3.1.1B, again, just on it says partial unit rental.
Yes.
But we're saying that there could be two dwelling units on, I just want to make sure the language is clear. There could be two dwelling units on somebody's principal residence, right? So that it's not just a partial unit, it could be a full dwelling unit that they're renting out.
I think if we, through Madam Chair, I think if we amend the definition of dwelling under principal dwelling short-term rental means a short-term rental located on the same property as the owner's primary residence or where they live primarily.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I do have a question. For the Class B, number E, it says the limit to 100 licenses for Class B. I find that pretty high. I thought we were limiting licenses with a combination of Class A and Class B.
It's absolutely an option.
And yes,
It's just for me, if you want to ensure that your Class B non-principal resident are not, what did I see the comment here? Because you don't want to reduce the availability of other people to be able to have permanent housing. Right, so I'm thinking that 100 is too high. If you're not imposing it on the personal, the Class A, then maybe we should bring that down to, I don't know, how many do we have that are non-residential, right? Non-principal dwelling? Yes, Madam
I
Mayor?
was just going to say, you could also propose that the limit of 100 licenses be for both classes. So you know, if your
Kind of
concern is that that's too many, if you do 100 plus whatever the principal are, a proposed amendment would be to limit it to 100 licenses overall, if that's.
I'm agreeable with that, yeah, thank you.
consensus on that?
Does anybody also?
Yes, all right. Anybody want to second that proposal, motion? Or any
But just like if anybody has any comments on that
comments, any
particular.
questions regarding the change to, yes, Councillor Sullivan?
So I don't really have a concern with the 100. However, before I would agree to 100, what do we have right now? Right, and that's the thing. So if right now we're at 1,000, which I'm sure I'm exaggerating, but if we're at 1,000 right now and everything's working well within our municipality, why cut so many people's opportunity by dropping it to 100? Now, with that said, if we're only at 50 in our municipality, then okay, so be it. But it's hard to decide on a number when we don't know what number is out there right now. That's what I'm getting at, unless that number is out there.
It's not necessarily out there because there's more than one platform. So if you did a scan of, say, Airbnb, you might come up with 80. That would take out any that aren't available at this time of year, might be, you know, like, so it is really hard to judge. There are companies that will do those environmental scans. My opinion on it is I would rather start lower than higher. For the reason, again, I think that it does encourage people to get their licenses if there's a limited number of licenses. And at any time, if the 100 fill up and Madam Clerk comes to us and says, you know, we've got 25 applications on the waiting list. Do you think council would like to consider upping the number? That's an easy amendment on the bylaw for it to come back to council and say, you know, we have 100 full, we actually have 60 on the waiting list. Does council want to change the maximum number of licenses to 115? And we could do that on the spot. I think to keep it tight at the beginning kind of promotes compliance and promotes people to actually there's a limited number, so you need to come and apply for your licenses now, and if not, you'll be on a waiting list. And at any time we can go back and look and say, okay, well, 100's working well, we've got a 50 long wait list, let's go up to 120. You know, that's my opinion on dealing with the total number of licenses.
Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Stool.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, we had a committee who looked at this and brought these as recommendations. Is there anybody who can share some insight as to how we got to 100 for the first cut of this draft here? Is it based on other municipalities of our size, or did we just say that seems like a reasonable number to start with?
I think it was a nice number to start with. As a comparator, the municipality of French River, which has a permanent residence of 2,500, but a much higher seasonal count than we do, has theirs limited at 50. So I think that kind of thought was that we're higher, we have more properties than them, and it was, it kind of in line with that, but I think 100 was just kind of a nice round number to start with. I don't think that there was necessarily, any kind of mathematical calculations done to support that number. It was just, yeah.
I just I think that someone had asked about the Class A's. I think that at the ad hoc committee, we had discussed the fact that there was not any concern there typically isn't concerns with Class A's because the owner lives there. That's why we didn't put a cap on the Class A licenses at that time. We certainly can if that's what council wishes.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I wouldn't be in favor in limiting the Class A, just leaving as is for now. It's going to be impossible to get a firm number of how many short-term rentals there are until we get the actual licensing bylaw and everything running. But again, through discussions with some of the residents in my area, there seems to be, all around with the verbals and TGGs and the Airbnb websites, close to 150, like across West Nipissing, and that's just like a calculation based on what's being, posted publicly. So I would be in favor of just leaving the Class A license with no cap, because it is, like Madam Clerk had mentioned, it is the primary residence of the owner. So like they are there if there are any issues. I can't please everyone when we go about in making bylaws. I would be comfortable with 100 right now, but to have a provision, I guess, inserted kind of like French River, because I know through their bylaw they have a specific clause that is referencing a wait list. So at least if there are 50 on a wait list, well, like what we had mentioned, we can always bring it back to council and adjust as needed. But I wouldn't cap the Class A license to 100. I think we should leave that as is. But like any other bylaw, we're going to review it with time too. We're going to readjust. But I wouldn't have like 100 for both classes. I wouldn't be in favor of it.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. So are we looking at keeping that section as is? Everybody in favor?
You're in favor? You have a question?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm looking for a
Status quo.
vote here. In favor, that section 3.11A and 3.12A to leave it as is. Joanne, in favor of keeping it the way it is? Thank you. Next one is 3.1.1D. That's still the same. Okay. So that concludes part 3. Part 4, licensing requirements. There is exception, yes.
Just 3.1.2F is the 1 kilometer radius, which I think was also identified as one of the discussion points. So just before we move.
Sorry, yeah, no, I thank you for. So the 3.1.2F, 1 kilometer radius restriction for straws, ensure that multiple straws cannot be clustered, which could disrupt use, enjoyment, and general character of neighborhoods. Any comments or questions on that? Councillor Pellerin?
Madam Chair, yeah, again, from what I've seen on our road and the neighboring road, there's 4 already existing within half a kilometer. I'm good with this because from everything what I heard, what I said earlier, with all the precautions that are in place, people are watching, people are neighbors, so they won't rent to they're gonna check people out. If we don't allow this, if we do allow just one per kilometer, what do we do with the four? It hasn't been a problem. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Prochain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, to kind of echo Councillor Pellerin's comments, there's a whole lot of Airbnbs in my area because there's a whole lot of lakefront properties. Not much of them are year-round residents, but with time they are being changed, and a whole lot of people who used to, have their cottage, they're converting it into houses and whatnot. So it is, the housing stock, I guess, is changing in a sense. But there are some properties, let's say, like there's people who actually own, properties in Verner, but that they do have a lakefront property, and they rent it out a couple of weeks a summer to make, kind of make ends meet in these times with, everything that's so expensive. I just went and bought toilet paper, and I was, astounded with the price again. Everything just seems to get up and up and up. So I kind of understand, where, some residents are coming from, where they're actually using some of that income to offset, shortfalls. I wouldn't be in favor of the 1 kilometer radius. Again, there's always some bad apples. I know there's two in my area, not too far from my place, which, when we were sworn in, I got some complaints very early on about, certain properties. So I know personally of a few properties that are problematic, but if we impose a 1 kilometer radius, for me personally, it doesn't make any sense because just the lakefront, let's say in the village of Lavigne, if you go 1 kilometer, it's kind of like the whole village in itself. So I would kind of, I would be in favor of just removing that clause completely.
And
we can always revisit too, later on as we.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Ristoul?
I'm listening to the conversation. I live in Sturgeon Falls, so I don't have a lot of lakefront around me, but I appreciate comments made by others. I'm just two things. One, we're using examples, and that's okay, but you can also use the example that maybe there's someone who lives there at their cottage and wants to enjoy it, and there's 3 cottages around them that are being rented, and there's 2 noisy ones. You're impacting the quality of life of that individual who's there full-time as well. If we're just giving random examples, we can use that one as well. So there's that to consider as well. It's not a perfect scenario, but not every renter is going to be as quiet as they should be, or as non-impactful to people who might have full-time residences in the area. The other question I have is, again, I'm going to go back to why we had 100. Why do we have 1 kilometer? And a further question is, why does it have to be all or nothing? 1 kilometer is okay. Maybe 500 meters is more reasonable. But we're talking here, and it sounds like it's either we have this draft that says 1 kilometer, so we have to either go 1 kilometer or we have to take it right out and have 0. Just looking for knowledge, I guess, shared around the table. Is there somewhere in between? And I'm kind of floating back a little bit to sometimes when we get property sales and people offer this much, and we don't have to say it has to be 1 kilometer or 0. Is there options in between that people would consider?
Well, just a comment. I think the 1 kilometer was committee did come up with, but you're 100% right. The idea was exactly, and I'm not speaking in favor or against it, but the rationale was exactly for that. where, you know, it depends on the lake as well, but sometimes you have very little lakes in West Nipissing where it really can change the makeup, you know, of one road if two or three are there, you know, side by side. We haven't spoken yet to the grandfathering aspect as well, which, you know, but certainly 1 kilometer is an arbitrary number. And council can agree to, you know, anything else as well.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So for section, yes.
Sorry, I'll speak. I'm a little bit on the fence on this one because I can see both points of view. And I think one of the challenges with it is that the majority of the short-term rentals, which are on lakefront property, there's very different characteristics in different parts of the municipality. So when you look at places like Promenade du Lac or Marlowe Road, where the lot sizes are quite narrow, you know, and if you have 2 or 3 or 4 of those along that stretch, the impact from quasi-commercial use of the properties is far greater on the people who actually do live there full-time because everybody's stacked so close together. And then in other areas of the municipality, when you look at lakefront properties, they are done according to what the zoning bylaw is now with a 200 waterfront, a 60 meter waterfront, so that's about 200 feet. And so that changes because you actually have acreage properties and there's a little bit more buffer space between the properties. I try to picture somebody who's in one of those tighter lots that all of a sudden ends up with a short-term rental on either side of them, and the traffic and the higher occupancy. And, you know, let's be honest, when people are on vacation, they do act a little differently than they act in their own neighborhoods or their own homes. So there is impact. So I'm a little on the fence because I think maybe it's a little hard to monitor, implement, like it puts a kind of certain level of complexity into the bylaw. But I do also understand the desire for our permanent residents who live in these areas to protect their quality of life. So it's really tough because it's I can see both sides of the coin. So I just wanted to kind of put those thoughts out there.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So, yes, sorry, Councillor Pasha.
Through you, Madam Chair, I kind of get, you know, both sides too. When it comes to that, I'm thinking, could we, there's just an idea, like, let's say remove it, but review the bylaw, let's say like in a year and see, you know, if there are, you know, 2 Airbnbs or 2 short-term rentals, let's say, and 1 residential, you know, full-time property owner in between. I'm thinking with the demerit point system and the complaints, at least, you know, if, you know, there's, you know, they've lost their license or they're, you know, they can't apply for a license, I think, you know, that would kind of fix the issues as they go up and, you know, starting too hard and just, I guess it'd just be my personal opinion to remove it and see if longer term we need it, and address it with the demerit point system. So, you know, if there's complaint for the 2 properties that's on, you know, Lac 2000, well, you know, those 2 properties, you know, if they have the X amount of demerit points to lose their license, well, they lose their license, and it kind of fixes that, you know, that specific issue without generalizing that other issue, let's say in Councillor, you know, Fern's area. So just an idea, yes.
Mr. Barbeau, sorry.
The only caution I would provide on rolling the dice is it really would depend on your grandfathering clause as well. Because if you've allowed 2 to be there, then what are you going to do to try and remove 1 later on? So I don't know that, I think you can park the conversation, but I would be careful on the impact you have trying to adjust somebody who's there already. It really depends on how you're handling an item that's further down the list.
I was gonna.
Sorry, Councillor Gagné, I'll just confirm first.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is to have it there, but had a grandfather clause in there. for the first year. If there's more than one within the kilometer, to allow it. And if there's no demerit points and no complaints, all current owners should be satisfied with that scenario. And might encourage people to register their dwelling for short-term rental at the same time.
Madam Mayor?
I was going to echo pretty much what Councillor Gagne said, is I would rather leave it in, grandfather it, and not only will it encourage registration and licensing, but I think it also encourages compliance with the bylaws that are meant to protect the residents. Because if you're grandfathered and then you lose your license because of demerits, with the current bylaw, your license wouldn't be reissued in that area. Would I be correct in assuming that? If a license is removed, application process. And so in some ways, if you leave it in, but you allow the existing operators to, like that doesn't apply to any existing operators and you have to register within the first year, then I think it kind of deals with everything. And then after that, new licenses would only be issued given the buffer. And whether it's a kilometer or, as Councillor Ristoul indicated, we want to go higher or lower than that, but it could be 750, 500. That's a whole other part of the conversation. Yes.
I'm just seeking clarification. So the clause stays in. It's applicable to new licenses only. Existing licenses would be exempt from the 1 kilometer.
We'd get to that on the grandfathering, but that would be my kind of recommendation. Like that's where I stand, but we haven't taken a vote through, Madam Chair.
So any other comments or questions? Yeah, Councillor Pellerin?
Yes, I think it's a good idea, Councillor Gagné. Because the issue will resolve itself if there's a bad apple. Because the Airbnb are getting so more popular that there's a scale or a scale system for the rentees and the renter. Because I heard a story, my nephew, they go down south to play a hockey tournament. They rented a house, there's 18 guys in the house. They're out there and his phone goes off. It's the owner. He had a silent alarm in the house. The silent alarm went off. This is what's going on. But 18 guys talking over each other. So the owner just said, tone it down or you're out of here. And they tone it down because they want that house. Every year they go there. So it's a good way both ways. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So if we put it to a vote right now to keep it in, we're going to rediscuss the grandfather clause at the end. So are we going to hold on to it until we discuss the grandfather clause, or keep it on and vote on it at that time?
I just move forward. I'd take the vote on it now.
Vote, okay.
Discuss the grandfather.
So is everybody in favor to keep the 1 kilometer from the boundaries of the property, to keep that statement in? All in favor? Raise your hand, please. Thank you. Passed. There are sections in red in the part 4 licensing requirements. It's not part of our staff report discussions.
Through Madam Chair, those were just, I had just highlighted how the demerit point, that was just information. There was no
Okay.
changes there.
Okay, so for part 4 licensing requirements, are there any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Pellerin?
I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask this. How much time, once the bylaw is passed, how much time do you have to get your license if you're doing Airbnb?
And that is a decision of council. Obviously, the intent would be to get everybody who is licensed or needs a license as soon as possible. You could stagger it and give a time frame for existing operators to come in and then open it up to new licenses. It's entirely within council's decision as to what kind of grace period you want to provide.
That could be a separate discussion after the bylaw passes, or that would be written into the bylaw, no?
No, it would be.
Yeah, so that's more of a policy discussion, so we would pass the bylaw and then potentially it would come back into committee, once the bylaw is passed, okay, and staff would present an implementation plan. So what the rollout is, when the forms will be ready, when the registration will open, what the process will be, and then we can discuss at that time what we feel are appropriate timelines. Every other municipality has had a rollout kind of timeline where it's not like, okay, the bylaw passed and tomorrow we're going to go issue a whole bunch of fines to everybody because they don't have their licenses yet. So there will be a defined timeline, but it is a separate kind of policy discussion after the passing of the bylaw when we look at what the implementation is.
Okay, I'm just asking because let's say somebody is doing this and he's booking for this summer or whatever, and he doesn't comply, you know? Anyway, yeah, look, talk. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So we'll take it to vote. Who is in favor of accepting the information as is for part 4, licensing and requirements? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Part 5, fees and cost recovery. Any questions or comments on that section? Seeing none, is everybody in favor of keeping the part 5 as is? Please raise your hands. Thank you. Part 6, appeals. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to speak to the property standards committee. We do actually have one, but they haven't had to meet yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I know like in the specific bylaw, we're, I guess, delegating the appeal, I guess, authority or to the body to the property standards committee. Is that fairly standard, like that we delegate like the, because I remember, but not too long ago, we had a appeal here for, I think, the dog bylaw, and it was council, so I'm just thinking like, is there a specific reason why it would be the property standards committee over council as a body, or?
Through Madam Chair, no, it's just some municipalities have a specific committee just for this particular thing. Some have it to their committees of adjustment, some have it to, their council. It's entirely this council's decision. If they want it to be all of council, that's fine too.
Yes, Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a follow-up question, do we anticipate that there are going to be like many appeals? Because I know like there's an appeal fee of $250. Usually that deters any, vexatious appeals or any, people that are trying to, kind of get out of it. But are we foreseeing many appeals, like for them not to go to council, or is it better to go to council than the committee, or just?
I don't know if we'll know till we get there.
Okay, because it's all in the.
I have a question to follow up. How many members are on the property standards?
4, I think.
Would it be an odd number?
4 or 5.
Okay.
And the chief building official is the staff person.
And just further to Councillor Christine, so the options available here would be to leave it with the Property Standards Committee. It could go to either Committee of Adjustment or Planning Advisory Committee.
As council.
Or it could be council.
Yep.
I'm fine. there are options there if council thinks that there's a better way to deal with films. There are some other options available.
So that was part 6 appeals. Any other questions or comments? Everybody in favor of keeping the status quo as written? Yes, raise your hand. Thank you. Part 7, inspection and enforcement. Any questions or concerns or comments? Seeing none, yes,
Okay,
Madam?
7.5.1. It says $25,000 and $50,000.
That is standard language in all bylaws.
Okay. Okay. It's a big hammer. Okay, because, is that for the obstruction or the orders or any of it?
That's just any provision. It's just basically caps the amount.
Okay.
It can't be more than those amounts.
Okay, but we do have a set fine
Yes, we
schedule
do.
as well for different.
Yes.
So the set fine schedule would override thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So a show of hands as to who is in agreement to keeping section 7 the way it is. Oh, Councillor Gagné? No,
Vote.
you're voting? Thank you. All in
He's keen.
favor? Thank you. Part 8 coming into force. I gather that's going to be
That would be
just
the
dates
date
in
that
the
it's brought
future.
back, well,
Yeah,
whenever
okay.
it's brought back in regular meeting.
Okay. Moving on to the schedules. Schedule A, the merit point system. Any questions or comments on that schedule? Yes, Madam Mayor.
Is there, like it's one across the board and that's on purpose? There wasn't any desire to have some offenses more
Council's wish to do.
okay. So I don't, as it stands right now, we're at one point for anything. And what's the threshold at which? 3? Okay. Okay. It's good. And unless any other members of council
Councillor
think that.
Bristol?
I was ready to wait patiently. I know the mayor was speaking as well, so is she done? Her thought?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just through you, Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, can we add a word in that? Because what's a year? Is a year a fiscal year? Is it a calendar year? What's a year? Can we just be specific? Maybe a calendar?
Is it a
year?
running year?
It
Is
would be a year from their license anniversary date, year.
Okay.
Did you get that, Councillor Bristol?
I did. That's great. Just wanted to seek clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Christian.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. I understand like that, vexatious complaints, investigated on a case by case basis. I've seen that in other bylaws and other areas as well, through, past experience as well. Can we maybe look at defining a specific clause that deals or that will kind of guide or, put a policy together in the bylaw that will formalize a process that the municipality can use to deal with vexatious complaints, so at least it's transparent and, if I'm, Fern's neighbor and, I just put in complaint after complaint after complaint just because I don't like him, at least, there's a clearly defined, process, in the bylaw for dealing with vexatious complaints. I know it's a little, kind of going a little deeper, but I've seen it in the past and it's worked fairly well, I guess, because there's a clear understanding at the onset of how those complaints are dealt with. It's just, I guess, an idea or suggestion.
Thank you. As a policy, that's not part of the actual bylaw. It would be related bylaw or?
I don't have the bylaw in front of me, but the point is to determine the process for dealing with vexatious complaints. I think our bylaw enforcement people and our law enforcement people, I think they understand that inherently in terms of how they apply. And usually that would happen in terms of frivolous or vexatious. The complaint really isn't substantiated upon investigation. And then as we've seen with a few people, I think the mayor recently, we have what we call frequent flyers. So usually if it's vexatious, we can usually tell, it's kind of the Peter cry wolf rule. You know, you can usually tell when this is just not something that we're going to be responding to.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Is everyone in favor of keeping the schedule as is? Raise your hand, please. Thank you. Schedule B. What's is that an old one?
No,
That's what,
it's the licensing fee.
Fees is scheduled
it's the
fee.
fees, okay. So Schedule B, licensing fees. Any comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Pellegrin?
Yes, to me, I don't know, it looks a little steep as a set price. It'd be lower.
I'll just share with you that I had actually reached out to the people in French River and received all of their council briefing and everything like that. The registration in French River, I think, is 1,400. And they actually had a full document for presented to their council that looked at those fees as far as what the staff time and what the implementation cost, and that was what their estimate was on what their cost recovery was to operate the licensing program. So I actually feel that our fees are quite reasonable, and I think that if you look at several other municipalities, when you look at the fact that our building officials are going out and our fire inspectors, and there's paperwork and administration to do on this end, I find that the fees are very reasonable. And also given the fact that, you know, for a weekly cottage rental, an average weekly cottage rental, you're probably getting anywhere from $1,400 to $3,000 a week, depending on you know, what the quality or size of the property that you're renting is. So when you look at the numbers, and if you're doing shorter than a week, it could be $200-300 a night that people are charging through Airbnb. So I find that our fees are reasonable in comparison to other municipalities and given the staff work that's required.
Yes, Councillor Resto?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd just echo the same similar comments as the mayor. I think, you know, if you look at the first year at 750, it's the introductory rate, but then you see a drop to 250 for subsequent years. And I think if these individuals are probably in this for more than a year at a time, everything's going to balance out. When you talk about staff requirements and what we're putting on, you know, our staff with this stuff as well, I don't see any issue with the rates as they sit there.
Any other questions or comments? I did have a question. The inspection fee, the 200, was that the re-inspection fee? Because I thought the 750 included the original inspection for the first time? Okay.
That is the re-inspection. I was supposed to write that in. I forgot.
That's okay. So that would make it more like 750. That first 250.
Yes.
And the initial.
Yes, I'll need a note of that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll put it to a vote. Who's in favor of accepting Schedule B as is? All in favor? Thank you. Schedule C, set fines. Any questions or comments? Yes, Madam Chair.
I wanted to note that the set fines obviously have to go to the province, and if they disagree, I may have to bring them back. These are the proposed. They may.
And what's the time frame approximately?
What, excuse me, we can't send the set fines until the bylaw is adopted. And then they review the set fine schedule, and if they feel the fines are excessive, they'll make a recommendation back, and I would bring it back to council.
Okay. Councillor Gagné?
Did we compare our set fines with French River?
No.
No?
They did it when we said.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Jean?
I would just note that to number 19, if the private road provision is being taken out
Yeah,
of
it
the
would come-
bylaw, then that would come out.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of keeping a schedule set fines as is? Thank you. Code of Conduct, Schedule B. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, is everyone in agreement to keep, Councillor Cochin?
Thank you, Chair. Again, just looking at my notes, yes, rentals code of conduct. So section 6 of the code makes reference, no person shall make noise. I would just, out of those 3 paragraphs, I would just strike the first paragraph because we're already referring to the noise bylaw and it's handled separately. I would just remove it so it doesn't, bring confusion, and we're already referencing the noise bylaw, which is a standalone, bylaw that would recommend the noise. So that's just my comments, I guess.
So you'd like just to strike the 3rd paragraph of section 6?
Just the first. So there's the first with the A, B, C, and D lists. So I just strike that out completely and just leave the other 2.
So starting with, please be advised that the municipality and then those 2.
And then we can reference the noise bylaw.
Any other comments or questions? So is everybody in favor of the amendment to remove that paragraph, the first paragraph, number 6, and rest as is? Yes?
Oh, sorry, that was a vote. It's all right.
That's okay, we're good.
I thought
next.
he was asking a question. So is
Did you
that
have a
coming out?
question?
I'm sorry. I missed.
Yes,
Oh, I didn't mean to put my hand. Doesn't matter.
everybody else did. Schedule E, short-term rental accommodation inspection. Any questions or comments about the list of inspection that's going to be performed? Comments, questions? All in favor of keeping the schedule as is? Any, yes, all in favor? Thank you. Yes.
Councillor Tessier, interrupt you. We are at 8 o'clock, which is our designated break time. So I would recommend that we go to break for 10 minutes and we come back and continue the discussion on those other consideration items as part of the staff memo.
Yeah.
So I would take a mover and a seconder for break, please. Councillor St. Louis, Councillor Cochin.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Cochin. At approximately 8 p.m., motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. holiday. Am I getting the nod, Ms. Craddock? Okay, thank you. Welcome back. We're continuing on our discussion regarding the short-term rental bylaw, and I'll pass the chair back to Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're at the other considerations, which is existing straws grandfathering. So we have some questions. If do we want to see who wishes to discuss the grandfathering clause? All in favor?
Non.
I'm sorry?
Oui, il y a une question.
Oh, question, okay. Councillor Pellerin?
Thank you, Manager. The question was raised, grandfathering. How long is it good for? Let's see if the four within the kilometer. Let's see if somebody doesn't apply right away.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you have to say that, oh yeah, I do that, I'm grandfathered?
Through you, Madam Chair. I think first of all, council will have to decide what is the criteria by which they would determine who is grandfathered. And if they would have to provide, proof. And then the next question, if the chair goes through the questions, the first question was whether or not persons who are already doing this would have priority to come and get their license over persons who were going to get newly into the business.
As far as parameters or proof, if we're going to grandfather, it would be easy for existing operators to show how long they've been active on any specific platform as far as rentals. And it would just be up to council to set a date, like is it December 31st, operating as of or before December 31st, 2023, or whatever that date would be. I think that's probably an easy one to do, but that would be the determination of council. So when you define grandfathering, active before when? Right? That would need to be defined as part of the grandfathering clause.
Councillor Gagné?
Yeah, to your comment, Madam Mayor, if I'm not on a social media site like Airbnb or VRBO, but I do have a secondary cottage and I rent it from spring to fall, how do I show proof that I've been renting? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if it's cash business, it's kind of hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, do you have any?
I think that, Madam Chair, I think any reasonable proof that, whether it's an agreement, I'm sure most people who rent it would have some kind of a rental agreement that they rent with people. I'm sure they have paperwork of some sort that shows that they've been doing it.
Okay.
And would be flexible in examining that.
Okay. Councillor Cochin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For one of those, there would be the statement of real estate income for that one that's filed every year. So if you declare your income that you're actually doing, that would be sufficient proof that you're actually operating. So it's an easy document. You don't need to ask for the full T1, but just that section. So it's.
I do love your assumption that everybody's declaring that. It's a very sunny outlook on life.
Councillor Pellerin?
On that thought, I don't think we're going to reach our 100. I got another question, Madam Chair. The grandfathering. Would it follow the property or the owner? Let's say the owner sells.
The owner.
The owner.
It follows the owner.
All licensing expires. Sale of property, the owner is licensed, not the property.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Council, Mr. Bourbon.
No, thanks.
Mr. Bourbon.
Sorry, just a sec, Mike. I'll go back to that. Anyway, no, just joking. So, so grandfathering, what is it, right? And so you're asking some of those questions, which is great. Should existing, I think you should follow this, should existing operators be giving priority to new operators for licensing? So that comes into the play, it comes into the discussion. How much time do you want to give to allow people to come in and get licensed before we open it up? We probably need a window for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there would be that discussion, and I imagine by grandfathering, the response to that is self-explanatory or self-evident, that obviously if we're going to be providing the existing operators and I'm just going to give you, so that you can move this along, the ability to not lose their income, that obviously they have to be given priority, but it's a two-way street. We're expecting them to be licensed, should council approve this bylaw, and therefore there should be a window that if you don't have it by this time, we're going to open it up to new ones, just so that you know that.
So if we want to start in kind of defining the terms, I would propose that existing operators be defined as those operating prior to December 31st,
Right.
2023. And if we could get whether agreement, or if you think a different date, we could start with that and then move on to the other questions.
Okay.
So that would be my proposal that I would put on the table, Madam Chair.
I thought that was understood, that it would have been prior to a season.
Yeah.
The question, though, is, so the question is, if you show proof that you operated 12 years ago, are you grandfathered? So it's not necessarily the most recently, it's how far back are you willing to entertain it as well, right?
Operating.
Right, so anything, we're in the last year,
Yeah.
right, in the last,
It show proof in
the last calendar
2023.
year.
So last calendar year. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
We have agreement on that.
Agreement on the last calendar year for, yes.
Okay.
In favor. So if I just go by, should existing operators be given priority to new operators for licensing? So we answer that with a yes.
Well, if you ask, then everybody can put their hand.
Okay, so is it a yes to that first question?
Existing
Everybody in
operators.
favor? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
But within that, just to help you
Yeah.
out, because it's a little more complicated than that, then yes, and I would say that that's a rhetorical question, if you're going to entertain grandfather. The more interesting operational question is, how much time do you give them to apply, or at least get into the queue for their license?
I'd say 3 months, but that's.
So that's,
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Cochin?
Thank you. Could we say within 6 months after the coming into force and effect of the bylaws, so we give them, I think a year would be a little too much, but within 6 months, if we pass the bylaw, let's say till the end of the year.
I think you're passing a bylaw soon.
Okay, so
So, sorry, I don't want to continue this in May or June. The other issue, though, would be whether you have a buy this year, because if you see some nice folks that are here and all of that, I think they have intention to, continue conducting business. So when is the bylaw in force and effect? Are you providing a grace period? Then what you're saying is accurate. If you're not providing a grace period, then you're going to have to do it a lot sooner than that, Councillor Cochin. You'll probably have to do that, say, by no later than, May 31st or June 15th or something like that. Because if somebody else wants it, that's fair enough for those folks who have it. If they can't get organized, come in earlier and at least get their application, that's on them. But if Councillor St. Louis wants to get into that business. He would like to know so that he can start advertising too, right? So we need to have a deadline that's reasonable. But that's too much. I would suggest, I would suggest 2 months is enough. Not to have your final approval, but just to get you and get your application in, so that we can get the numbers.
Can I just go to Councillor Restoll? He had his hand raised.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think we should be as, concise as we can with getting this in effect. I wouldn't go, 6, 7 months. That's the whole summer season. And if we want to get this in place, change is always a challenge. That's just how life is, right? And putting this in place it's going to cause people to have to get their ducks in order and get things in line. And I'm just don't want to drag this out. If we're going to pass it, we want this implemented because we want to have this within the municipality. We should have not too reasonable, but very concise and short enough timeframes to get this in place as soon as we can.
Thank you. Mayor Rochelle?
It's been well reported that council is working on this type of bylaw for the operators who are existing. They're aware that this is coming. And additionally, when we're talking about grandfathering, we're talking about the operators who are operating properties that may fall out of some of the specifications of this bylaw, like the 1 kilometer. So it then narrows that pool who require those grandfathering clauses. So I think that a 2-month, as Mr. Barbeau suggested, or 3-month period is adequate. The people who are in this business, it's a business for them, and they know that it's coming. And when the bylaw passes, it's up to them to come and do that. So I would say, especially if we're giving existing operators a priority on those limited number of licenses, I think we have to keep that window really tight.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. However, and I 100% agree with the same thing, whether it's at 2 months or the middle of June or whatnot. However, we're still not going to preclude individuals that are grandfathered if they apply and if they have the opportunity, let's say in August for whatever, and there's licenses left, correct?
Right.
They're still going to be grandfathered.
Right. So my thinking is the intention is to provide a date like May 31st. After May 31st, if you haven't done that, we'll advertise it. After May 31st, if you don't have your application in, and then we're going to be opening it up. And if we have others that come in and we've filled the capacity, then you won't.
Yeah. Perfect.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none.
So we want to define whether council is in agreement on 2 months or
2 months. Yeah, because I think you said May 31st, but we won't know if May 31st until we get the bylaw passed, and then it's like 2 months after to get that. So is everybody in agreement with the time frame of 2 months after the bylaw is approved to allow?
We have a set fine schedule for those things finalized right after the day it's passed.
No, but the issue, I'm thinking on behalf of the operators being new or existing. If you want to maximize that, I think it's incumbent upon the staff to work simultaneously. And with respect, I think that if you want this bylaw to be applicable for this year, you better pass it. We're almost finished. We better pass it like early April. And then we will not be waiting for it. We'll be getting forms, application forms and that. So, and that the public will be able to know that we will at the same time go with the justice, get our set fines approved. But in the meantime, I don't think that precludes an application.
Okay, so even though we're waiting for the fines, we can still accept the bylaw and then move it applications? Okay.
Yeah, that shouldn't hold us back.
Okay, so upon the approval of a bylaw, to allow 2 months window to grandfather the current owners.
Sure.
Is everybody in agreement with that? Yes? Thank you. Second question, should existing operators be required to comply with terms of the straw bylaw? Yes? Okay.
I think save and accept, sorry, I
Sorry,
don't
go
mean to
ahead.
debate, but just from what I was hearing, save and accept perhaps the existing 1 kilometer provision. Oh, okay.
Okay. So that's a yes. And would existing
Oh,
operators located closer than 1 would be permitted to continue? So is that a yes or?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm forgetting to ask comments or questions. What evidence of existing operation will be required?
Answer that.
You James, okay?
Yep.
Will existing operations on legal non-conforming properties be permitted to continue?
Can you speak to that just for a minute? So if the zoning has changed, like, can you just explain legal non-conforming and what that might look like so council has a better understanding of that, if you could?
That would actually, I think we pretty well covered that, but that would relate to a property that would be not usually used, like it doesn't comply with the zoning,
Okay.
but it's being used as a residence.
Comments or questions? Not sure I understand what because
we've covered it.
Yeah, it's in the zoning. The only one that's not eligible is the agricultural one, right?
No, we put that back in.
Oh, that's back in? Okay.
Just forget it. It was
Okay.
wasn't a good question.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments for the grandfathering clause? No?
Oh.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess there could be a situation where, let's say, there's an existing operator that's being grandfathered in, and for some reason or other, there's a lapse of insurance. Possibly, the operator is changing insurance providers. I know through other municipalities, instead of revoking the license, it's suspended until until the insurance is put back into effect. Again, not to be onerous on staff with a whole lot of paperwork, but if an existing operator was grandfathered in, has the license, then has his license revoked because of a lapse of insurance, regardless of the reason, if it's a change of insurance company or whatnot. I just feel like if we revoke the license instead of suspending it, it's a little harsh, because if that person was grandfathered in, right, if that license is revoked for that reason, let's say for the insurance, then that person can apply for another license technically, right?
So
it'd be
would that only be caught at the license application stage where their insurance has lapsed?
Well, it's actually, so section 2.2.3, so where it refers to lapse of insurance, in the bylaw, does provide that the license will be revoked. However, I've seen in other areas in other municipalities, the language is as such that it suspends the license until the municipality has, satisfactory proof that the insurance is back into effect. So kind of suspends the license, so it would follow all the provisions as we have for suspended license, but it wouldn't revoke the license just for that insurance. So aspect of it.
I suppose my concern as a resident and somebody who's kind of dealing with liability right now, I think that's a case-by-case basis issue if it's just a lapse or a transitional issue. My concern is to have an operator, hopefully it's like a 1 in a million, that is operating without insurance and creating a severe liability to any of the renters in order to get redress should something happen of a negligent manner. So I think, I think that might be on a case by case, but I don't know how our bylaw enforcement people mid-license would be able to catch that anyway. It would only be on license renewal.
Well, is there, so there's a requirement within the insurance that the insurance company is aware that the property is being used for short-term rental? Like there has to be a clause in the insurance that it is being used for quasi-commercial purposes?
I don't think that's part of the excuse me through you. I don't think that's part of the bylaw, but I think that's part of the owners. If they don't disclose to their insurer that they're renting their place, then I think it would invalidate their insurance.
Okay. I just wondered whether if it was showing as the insurance, because I've seen other places where the policy actually has to specify that it's insured to be used as a short-term rental. And then I wondered whether or not you would have the municipality as a I'm thinking about.
I don't think we need to.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the spirit of this, Councillor Cochine, is that the lapsing of insurance, it means that they don't have insurance and that's a serious concern. Now, if somebody's coming at application indicating and showing that they have been in contact, then we could look at that and say, well, we'll hold it for a period of time. But if it's unreasonable and they're not getting insured, then it will be revoked.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you for the explanation.
Council Resto, do you still have a question or comment?
I was just going to say I wouldn't be a fan of taking it out. If you're going to apply for an application, if you're going to pay a fee, there's responsibility on your end to make sure you have all your stuff in order. And I'm not a fan of potentially starting some possible loopholes in the future for individuals where we have to go chase for insurance. I think if we're clear and it's kind of pretty square, you need your insurance in place, and that's part of the licensing part, then it's on the operator to make sure that they have the insurance that they need.
Thank you.
Just my thoughts.
So are there any other questions or comments regarding the grandfathering information to add to what we've currently put together?
I would just want to confirm with staff that they have all the direction that they need from council for the grandfathering at this point. There's no other questions that you would have to be defined. Okay.
So do I pass the chair back to you, Madam Mayor?
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll just close the discussion on the short-term rentals. So we've gone through this fairly comprehensively today. Just before we close, any other questions or concerns that you don't feel have been addressed during our discussions today? Because staff is going to use this information, go back and make the changes, and then be ready to come back to us. It's not going to come back to committee again. So.
No, this will come as a bylaw approval.
So this would come as a bylaw approval. So there will be an opportunity, of course, to speak at that meeting. But if there's anything else that you feel hasn't been addressed that you'd like to see addressed before we send staff away with it, I'd just like to hear that now. Okay, perfect. Councillor Tissier, thank you very much. You did an excellent job chairing that, and I do appreciate the thought you put into the process and leading us through that discussion. It was long, but I think that we got where we needed to be. So thank you very much. Okay, so that's Planning Committee. We do have one item under our Public Works Committee this evening. I will pass that to the chair, Councillor Gagné.
Thank you. So we've received thank you, Madam Mayor, received a petition requesting paving on Canal Road. So we got the information from Henning in regards to costing and so on. I will open it up for any questions that people might have. Regards to this. Yes, Councilor Casey.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I do have some questions. I was looking at possibly the cost of the breakdown of the summer maintenance and winter maintenance for this section of Canal Road for 2023 and 2022 for, let's say, calcium spraying and grading. I'm looking at possibly, they're looking at paving, but is there an alternate resurfacing treatment like the other side of Canal? I think the other side of Canal is has a treatment, surface treatment. And I'm
Right.
just
Okay.
looking at possibly looking at an alternative to paving.
So through you, so there's a variety of different treatments, right? And I'm not a public work expert, but I play one on TV. The other alternative to paving is what they call hard surfacing or chip and tar, depending on what you would call that. And typically that type of road would be probably recommended for that kind of treatment and not a full pave. Typically our paving is for more heavier traffic roads in terms of volume of traffic, heavier vehicle. I know you have some heavy vehicle, but so does Highway 575, and it's actually hard surfaced and not paved, right? So some of the questions that you asked with respect to grading and plowing, the grading and the plowing is done in-house. And so you, if you want a unit cost for that, it would be a little misleading, Ms. Stacy, because the grader would be going out there anyway or passing by there anyway to get to another gravel road. So really, you know, the amount of time spent, you know, would be negligible with respect to that. The winter maintenance, our minimum maintenance standards don't necessarily differ from a gravel road or a paved road. So we have to have a response in a certain amount of time, and we have to plow those roads regardless of gravel or paved. And then we're going to sand them regardless as well. And so that really, you know, just I really respect and appreciate your question with respect to cost benefit. The cost of surface treatment would be about $117,000 just for the surface treatment for that surface. But there'd be a lot of improvements, ditching, adding granular, getting it ready so that that hard surface doesn't break in 3 minutes. And that would be an additional $254,000 approximately. So it would be around $371,000 cost. The cost for calcium for that road completely, so that's actually a unit cost that we can do. It's about $1,400. So if you were going to compare the cost benefit to it, by far, you know, leaving it the way it is by far less expensive than paving it. If you were going to pave all kinds of sections, that we're going to be eliminating the need for our machinery to go out there, but our machinery still goes out to Promenade du Lac and some of the roads around the Garden Village in that area as well. The other side of Canal Street on the east side is still done that way, and then that grader is also going down and doing Lac du Mille. So you're not really saving in that area. So I hope I answered your question. Really isn't a massive saving or cost benefit to doing it. What I would recommend though, as this is a budgetary issue, is that this would be included in next year's capital as options, given the fact that it was a petition and council would be making that determination at that time anyway. You wouldn't be doing it now anyway, for a variety of reasons, procurement being one of them as well.
Okay.
Good. Councillor Casey, good?
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Mayor.
So if that were to come back as part of capital budget next year, would that be identified as a citizen request as opposed to being a recommendation from staff based on this study? I think that's another thing that we have to take into account is that, there's been identified a pretty large deficit as far as our roads maintenance. And, we've had professionals come in to assess which roads are most in need of repair based on both traffic and condition. And I would just want to make sure that it wasn't included. It was somehow separated, that we knew it was an extra and not a part of meeting that road needs.
No, certainly any other requests, way that we say are budgetary, come back and we would highlight in discussion.
Because I don't think that road would be identified by our public works staff as a high priority project at this point.
No, we're into maintaining our existing infrastructure and improving our existing infrastructure. That being said, if we were to wait for our infrastructure deficit to be met, we're probably, I'm not going to be here, that's for sure, and I won't be alive. But the other options that, again, surface with this area, and I got a contact from a very nice gentleman again, is the concept of looping water services in that area, and that could be, a way as well to work with the existing residents and do it as a local improvement. So, but those are options that we can look at.
Thank you.
Good, Madam Mayor, I have the same comment as you, is we do have a road needs assessment that was done, and I think that should be part of the deliberation. Which road should actually be attended first before receiving or actually looking at inquiry debates or decision on if there's ever additional capital money to be spent. Any other questions?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So I heard the 370,000 for hard surfacing, about that's after brushing as well. So you'd be looking, we'd be at about 475.
No, that'd be all in.
Oh, with the brushing as well. Okay, so 300,000. Thinking of the municipality as a whole and the best interest of the municipality, I do agree with our road assessment that there's other roads that need to work much more. Just thinking of Nipissing, for example, that's right there. That one needs a lot of work. And there's so many. So once we start adding to our infrastructure in that way where we'd have more paved roads, then you also have to keep that paved throughout its entirety. So that jumps quite a bit. I did notice that there's only about 7 signatures, but thanks to Kevin, who went out and gathered the signatures. But I do know during my canvassing of that area, almost everyone had the same concern, and it all revolved around dust. So I was just wondering maybe if, like Minister Barbo mentioned about next budget, if we could see some options, especially where it is heavily traveled. They use it as a shortcut. They come down Nuchazak and then through Canal over to Leisure Farms or all sorts of, there's more housing there as well now with the development between Nipissing and Roy. So there's just more and more traffic there. So that's where the main complaint is the amount of dust. So I was wondering, I do know there's some municipalities out, East Ferris Bondfield, they have this special granular that lowers the dust. I have no clue about that. Like you said, I'm not a public work expert either, but that'd be something I'd like to explore or see during budget time, or maybe if that road in particular would get slightly, maybe one extra pass of calcium, right? I know I'm veering off here, but I do know it'd be great for the dust and busy road, but at the same time, if you pave it, a lot of people were saying speed as well. I think that makes it worse. So for the shortcut, then everyone would be using that, and that may make it more dangerous in one way. So thinking of the municipality as a whole, I think we have to spend our money elsewhere and kind of think strategically, but I'll deal with the complaints as I see fit.
Any other questions? more questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next up, we do have one item under Community Services Committee, and I will pass the floor to Councillor Rivard, our chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I got used to not saying anything there for the first hour and a half. Here in Community Services, we have 5.3.1, Council Committee of the Whole on May 21st, my birthday. We will be having a council meeting in Laving from the looks of it, so we just wanted council's unanimous approval on this. Would Monsieur Poulain or Monsieur Barbeau like to add? I imagine it'll.
No, I just, you know,
I'll say a few words. So we have already been to North Manettville and we've been to River Valley. So next up is Laving. Of course, the people in Laving are fabulous, and I'm sure that staff will work closely with our friends at the CCL with the logistics for it, and I hope to see a lot of people out there. And Councillor Rivard, since it is your birthday, you will be happy to know that the CCL is a fully licensed facility. When the meeting is over, you never know. So, thank you.
do you make cakes?
Oh, we have cookies.
Birthday cookies.
Yeah,
Get a big
thank you
chocolate.
for that information, but when I'm working.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be fun, I'm sure, and in Jerome's area. So just by a show of hands, we all approve that the council meeting on May 21st is in London.
Beautiful.
Back to you.
Okay, thank you. We will get on to the regular portion of the meeting now. Item 6.1, our consent agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Crochet. Be it resolved that the consent agenda for the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held on March the 19th, 2024 be approved.
Okay, questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and now on to new business. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Perrin. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-18, being a bylaw to set the tax ratios for the municipality. Oh, no.
Sale and disposition of land bylaw. Sorry. Oh,
I steepled it, sorry. My bad. It is moved by Councillor Cushain and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-17, being a bylaw to amend Schedule A of bylaw number 2021-18, being a bylaw to establish a procedure for the sale and disposition of land owned by the municipality, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. It resolved that bylaw number 2024-18, being a bylaw to set the tax ratios for the West Nipissing municipality for the year 2024, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-19, being a bylaw to set the rates for solid waste management system in the West Nipissing municipality for the year 2024, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, solid waste, questions or comments? All in favor? Carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-20, being a bylaw to set the rates for the water and sewer in the municipality of West Nipissing, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. It resolved that bylaw number 2024-21, being a bylaw to amend Schedule A of bylaw 2019-55, being a bylaw to adopt an accountability and transparency policy for the West Nipissing municipality, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Sorry, can you? Carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that certain West Nipissing fire service equipment described herein be declared surplus for the municipality of West Nipissing, and be it further resolved that council hereby authorizes the disposition of the following equipment: one 1997 Freightliner pumper.
Questions or comments? Councillor Pellerin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, Could we advertise these surplus items a little bit more?
I don't know the process for that.
So with, the last group that we did with some of the smaller vehicles, we did list them on our website with, things like the fire truck that are, fairly significant and have a fairly targeted audience, and also more complication as far as how people are gonna pay. We've actually got, an arrangement with Gov Deals, and so they take care of it. It's like an auction house kind of thing. So they take care of the payment, they take care of arranging, they take care of all the sort of transfer stuff for us, but they are also the advertising tool. We've got a link back on our website to the property. So this one will go with Gov Deals as well. But it really is, it's a good tool for disposing of public sector assets.
Okay, I was just comparing to the last item that we put up for sale, like the 2 snow machines and the little tractor. Stuff like this should be advertised more, like even in the Tribune for $200-300. Maybe not bigger items like this, but smaller stuff should be advertised locally. It would pay for itself, hands down.
Okay.
Just a comment.
Councillor Rivard?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just thinking with the Tribune for the smaller things, I was thinking if we're paying $200-300, we're eating in quite a bit to some of those things may not bring back that much money either. I do understand the concern for that, but I think maybe if we would just promote that Gov Deals a bit more. I know I used to go on it quite a bit and I completely stopped, but it is a pretty accessible site with quite a bit of stuff on there. But I wonder if there's any other ways even to make it even cheaper than the Tribune, but still more local, right? As Councillor Pellerin was mentioning.
Councillor Restool?
Just wondering if maybe we could suggest if we want to look at policy, that's kind of a little bit different. We're just talking about the fire truck for now and the disposition of it. If we want to look at our process, maybe that's something for another meeting.
Thank you. I'll make a note of that, Councillor Restool. Thank you. So we've got a resolution on the floor, and it's been read. So any other questions or comments before I put it to a vote? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Oh, great. We will just close the meeting tonight. I'm not going to give mayor's report, so I'll have the confirmatory bylaw, please.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so I will make one announcement on behalf of all of her council colleagues. People at home will notice that Councillor Nicol is absent this evening. As much as we joked about having a baby in council, she actually managed to deliver on council meeting day. So we'd like to send out our congratulations to Councillor Nicol, her husband and her son on the safe and happy arrival of their daughter today. And we're very pleased for her. Again, Councillor Rivard set the bar in having our first baby born on council last year. And now we have two parents of young families sitting in our council chambers, and congratulations on behalf of all of us and all the staff to Councillor Nicol and her family. Okay.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-22 being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 19th of March 2024 shall come into force and take effect from the date is passed.
All in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Ricard. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on March the 19th, 2024 be adjourned.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you again for a great meeting, and great discussion today. What? No. Bye, Councillor Restool. Have fun.